Welcome back to the Becoming Her podcast. You guys, Dr. Ann and I are here again today, and we're pretty freaking excited to talk about some very much so lived experiences for sure when it
Yes.
comes to menopause. And I actually titled this Fat, Foggy, and Frustrated, the Menopause Trifecta. And I want to start off by saying those are your guys' words, not mine. Words that I hear so very often. But if we had to describe it, I mean, I would say just that. Wouldn't you agree, Anne? I mean, when menopause
Oh,
hits,
so accurate. Yes.
for freaking sure. And just being able to, I want to speak to, like we said, our lived experiences, because I think it helps so much when you hear other women struggling with the same exact thing. And I'm full blown perimenopause and has gone through actual menopause. She's postmenopause right now. So we're going to speak to that as well as like what hormone replacement therapy has done for us. But I want to speak to as well, you guys, the method that we use on Team Becoming Her, because when you prioritize the things that we prioritize on the team, then the results happen. But
Mm.
it becomes a different, I mean, it's a mentality swap, right? It's a mindset shift from what you used to quote unquote always do. And these things feel so ungodly foreign. They almost feel ass backwards. And so, again, just really diving into the whole trifecta of all of this and what you can take from this podcast is what you actually need to do that's going to produce results. So, and let's start with you and just talk about your journey with, I mean, obviously perimenopause hit, actual menopause,
Hmm.
like just let you take it away, girlfriend.
Okay. Well, so I talk about this often, not because I don't like Western medicine or didn't love my PCP. She's no longer working as a PCP. She went on and did some other really cool stuff. Amazing woman, trusted her 110%, went to her. And I was having perimenopause symptoms, like really heavy periods, like I'm pretty sure that my husband would have gotten arrested had I gone missing, kind of heavy periods, like, the things that they do, the blue light special, for the detectives do the blue light when somebody goes missing. And it was awful. I had no fatigue, and I am naturally a very energized person. I love moving and going and doing and hiking and running, and like I'm always doing stuff. And perimenopause hit, and I went to my doctor, and I was pretty sure something was going on hormonally. And she said to me, "You are too young. It is impossible. But if you don't like your heavy periods, I can put you on birth control." Well, historically, on birth control, I have turned into an evil witch. And I mean the B word, not the W word. But, that's very relatable, and more so than typical, just the typical stressed out mom of 10 children. Um, and so when I went into her office and she said that, and I don't like the options. She's like, "Well, we could put you on Zoloft." And like, again, don't like those options. It's got to be something different, because this was a substantial shift for me. And so I wrestled with it for another 2 years. Two years.
Jeez, you kept put up with
Finally
this.
went, got an endometrial ablation because my periods were just horrendous. But I was still struggling with pretty chronic fatigue. I was starting to gain weight in my midsection. I'd go to the doctor, and the doctor just said, "Yep, this is kind of like life. You're still within range of your weight. You should be proud of yourself. You've had 7 kids, and you look great. This is just what happens. This is what aging looks like." So I think by the time I finally went to a functional medicine specialist, I was maybe 3 or 4 years into this process. I'd done the things to manage what I was willing to do to manage the symptoms, had not gone on birth control because I just do not, birth control does not work well with me. I know that might shock those of you who are listening, considering I have 7 children, but it doesn't work well for me. Um, and so I finally, in talking with one of my good friends, as she was talking about hormone replacement, and I didn't even know this was an option. I thought you had to get everything through your PCP. So anyway, lo and behold, I go to this functional medicine specialist. Everything's out of pocket, but at this point, I'm willing to pay someone everything out of my savings account to just feel better and to like look better in my skin. And I go in there and they do labs, and the coolest thing that I heard her say that really resonated with me is, one, they were looking at labs very detailed. They were looking for things that have never been looked for before. But the coolest thing that she said to me is, there's a difference between your within range and very low, and there's an optimal range.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, say what? And then she explained it to me and she said, yeah, like you might get enough sleep, like 4 hours, maybe 5 hours, you're getting enough sleep, but like optimal for you might be 7 or 8 or 9 hours, right? Like where you're really functioning at your best and your brain's really working well. And so if you're kind of going through life with really low levels of testosterone or really low levels of the inactive thyroid or the active
Mhm.
thyroid or whatever hormone that's out of whack, you might notice it. And if you're really sensitive, you're going to notice it more. And one of the things that she did is she did the MTHFR gene mutation.
Mhm.
She did a test for it. I got it. Kind of explained all these secondary symptoms that I had and also all of my difficulty with medication. And she put me on hormones. Initially, it was just estrogen. And then eventually, as menopause kind of weared on, and now I'm postmenopausal, I'm on all the hormones. I get progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. And they will have to pry those pellets away from my dead, lifeless hands. I feel like a 20-year-old. I am not even remotely joking. I have the energy I used to have. I have the motivation I used to have. Some of the brain fog went away, not all of
Well,
it.
well, you do have 10 kids. I mean, come on.
there may be
Bowing
a
down to
little
you.
there may be a little overwhelm and maybe some cognitive decline in there, but I went from feeling like there was something, like I went from, I think honestly, being almost medically gaslit by someone who really, I think, knew her stuff but didn't know it well enough, um, and wanted to believe that maybe if I just worked harder, ate better, worked out more. I mean, I was putting in, for just even trying to manage my midsection, the weight gain in my midsection, I was putting in 100 miles on a road bike every single week on top of transporting kids to and from and running a business. And I still was gaining weight. I wasn't losing weight and my calories were pretty low, like all the things. And I was stressed out and overwhelmed and just feeling like I was going to shoot my, like, both feet. Like I just thought, okay, I just got to accept it. This is just
Mhm.
what life's going to be like. And I just need to cope with it and move on. This is just my new body and my new normal. And maybe I just can't do what I used to do anymore.
Yeah.
So I cannot speak more highly about hormones, functional medicine, thinking outside of the box when it comes to Western medicine. I am a huge advocate of that now. I haven't always been. I always was like a little skeptical and thought, like, supplements, like, really? Uh, but make or break difference in my life.
There are so many things that you said that I want to dive into. I mean, so many things, because I know 98% of women listening to this right now are going, yep, check, yep, that's me, check, yep, yep. And what I first want to dive into is just the mentality behind, because I talk about this often, but I truly feel like the Western medical system is broken. But this whole
Hmm.
mentality behind your PCP, well, that's just kind of what it is, right? Like, this is aging. Like, that is, like, we've normalized feeling like absolute rubbish and just accepting that as, like you said, your new normal. So basically your doctor was telling you that you're going to go to your grave never loving your body again a day in your life and feeling like dog doo doo. Like,
Hmm.
come on. And I think where I get even more frustrated here is that if a male were to go into his primary care physician, I mean, males don't have OBGYNs, but if a male were to go into his primary care physician with the same exact symptoms that you've rattled off, Anne, right? Like, I'm not sleeping, my sex drive is kind of low, I'm not feeling the greatest, like, help me. That that doctor is writing a prescription for testosterone before he can even finish spitting out what he's saying. But when
Yep.
it comes to a female with the same exact symptoms, hormone replacement therapy, and this is what I want to talk to you, because you're like, I was being gaslit. But the thing here is like you said, I trusted my PCP. Like, she was amazing, but she just didn't know what she didn't know,
Yep.
because they're not trained in hormones when it comes to being able to help serve, and a menopausal woman, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, to truly help a menopausal woman, and not just feeling her best, but looking her best. And I always say, if you want to look and feel as good as you did in your 20s and 30s, you need the hormones you had in your 20s and 30s. But what they're given in medical school is, and I love that you dived into this because I really want to dive into this piece of it, is they're given ranges, right, on a sheet of paper. And
Hmm.
if you fall within these ranges, then everything's fine. You're
You're
fine.
fine.
You're
Yeah.
totally fine. And even though you're symptomatic AF, and it's crazy to me because you're like, I went about this for 2 years, but how many women listening to this have, like, I've been dealing with for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years? Because
Yeah.
for me, perimenopausal symptoms started, I was like 33, 34, and they didn't
Mm.
come on as hot as what you were explaining, but I couldn't sleep. the brain fog really started.
Yes.
And I was just like, words were upstairs, but I couldn't spit them out. And if you guys follow me, you guys know I talk, I'm a talker, right? Like, it's what I do for a living. But it's like literally, I could think them, but I couldn't get them out of my mouth. And I knew something was wrong, but it was the same exact thing. There's no possible way. You're way too young. And at that time, I had bought into that because I mean, I was young. I was like 33 years old. And I love that you talked to, you're like, because you truly were advocating for yourself. You're like, I don't like these options. Antidepressant, no, thank you. Right. And then as well as synthetic birth control, like birth control is synthetic hormones, and understanding that, I guarantee you, and if you would have bought into that and you would have been like, okay, give me the birth control, because that's what most women do, there's a massive difference between synthetic and
Oh,
bioidentical, right?
yes.
And birth control is synthetic hormones. They are synthetic. So, like, there's a difference between synthetic progestions versus bioidentical progesterone, synthetic estrogen versus bioidentical estradiol. Synthetic estrogen, you guys, is horse urine. You're putting
Mm,
horse urine into your system. And so bioidentical is going to be that same molecular structure that your body already naturally produces. Your body is going to recognize that as what it's already producing. And so that's why there's a massive like shift in how your body responds to these hormones. And it's so common for women to come to me and they're like, Nicole, I'm on hormone replacement therapy and I still feel like dog doo doo. And
mhm.
98% of the time, it's synthetic hormones that they're on, and they have no idea that they're even on a synthetic version because providers are not talking about this piece of it. And they don't, honestly, I feel like they may not even truly understand the difference themselves, if I'm being completely transparent with you,
Yeah.
right? And the other piece of this, and this might even be a completely different podcast. I don't know, maybe it's like conspiracy theory. I don't know. But bioidentical hormones cannot be patented. They can't. And so doctor isn't making a kickback off of prescribing bioidentical, right? And most insurances, most won't cover bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. So there's a cost out of pocket, which also sucks. Part of this whole Western medical system is broken kind of thing that I was just talking about.
Yep.
But again, I love that you advocated for yourself, because a lot of women just they trust what their doctor says, right? Because they have, the accolade behind their name, Doctor so and so, and they trust that that is the best option instead of truly doing their research and being able to, you know, speak for themselves and what they know is or is not going to be the best option for their body.
And can I speak to that really quickly? Because
Yeah.
I actually had someone come into my office, and we had this was a patient of mine, and we had this really good talk about this. And I said, I never want you to accept something out of my mouth for you that doesn't resonate for you. I
Mm.
always want you to challenge it, because while might be an expert about a lot of things in my field, you are the expert of you. And so the reason why I want the challenge is because at a bare minimum, it's an opportunity to explain it deeper, or it's an opportunity to learn more about you and why something doesn't fit, to go
Mhm.
search for the correct answer. I am not the expert about you as a human being. And one of the reasons why I believe that medicine earmarks us for synthetic hormones is because synthetic hormones are cheaper to produce.
Mhm.
So therefore they're cheaper for insurance companies.
Yep.
And there's all these layers that go into this, but if insurance companies are driving reimbursement for physicians, it isn't that physicians mean poorly.
Exactly.
It's rather like they want to get paid,
Mhm.
and they don't want to have to deal with unhappy patients who walk away and then say, well, I can't get this at the pharmacy, or it's going to cost me $500 out of pocket to get this because my insurance company isn't going to cover it.
Mhm.
And so they kind of go the path of least resistance that is going to fit for most people and be somewhat affordable for most people.
Yep. Yep. 100%, 100%. And that's why I always say it's not that your PCP means bad, or they truly
Yes.
do want the best for you. Same thing with your OBGYN. Again, it's just not me throwing stones, just saying they honestly just don't know what they don't know. And I want to break down menopause just for those listening to this, because I get asked often. It's like, well, am I in menopause? How do I know I'm in menopause? Right. And I think I'm in perimenopause. What labs do I run? And I want to walk through this just so you can have a solid understanding walking away from this podcast. So, the average age of menopause, and this is just average, you guys, is 45 to 51. It can happen sooner, it can happen later, but that's the average age. Perimenopause can start as early as 10 years leading up to actual menopause. There are no labs that you can do, that you can have run, that say yep, that's it. You're in perimenopause. Perimenopause should be a symptoms-based game. Now, you know that you've hit actual menopause if you have gone 12 consecutive months without a period, 12 consecutive full months. So if you have gone 11 months and 26 days and you start your period on 11 months and 27 days, you haven't hit menopause and the whole cycle starts over again. And I know that that could feel daunting, but it's just that's the reality of what it is. So when you have gone 12 consecutive months without a period, the day after that is menopause. Menopause itself is honestly, it's one day. The day after that is postmenopause. Now you are officially post-menopause, right? And so you hear often it's like, I don't know if I've hit menopause. I don't think people realize menopause itself is one day. Most you live your life perimenopause or postmenopause. And
Mm-hmm.
so understanding what cycle or what phase that you're in right now is really going to help you with how you advocate for yourself because hormones fluctuate in different ways, and typically during perimenopause what happens is progesterone is the first hormone that starts to decline, and for females that's like I always say it's like nature's Xanax for females. So this is our
Mm-hmm.
like cool and calm and collective hormone. This is what helps us sleep, it what helps us regulate our emotions and our mood, right? And so when this hormone starts to decline, just like I had told, like Anne said, okay, my symptoms were yours came in pretty hot. I just started with noticing that I could not sleep. Like it was like, but it was that wired yet tired feeling, right? So I was
Yes.
exhausted all day. And then I would go to lay down, so excited to go to bed because I'm exhausted and I couldn't sleep. And that was my first like big symptom. That and erratic periods, like they were all over the place. And mine were super, super heavy as well. And I actually got a hysterectomy for this reason because my periods were so
Wow.
godly heavy. I kept my ovaries, which helped, but this didn't help with symptoms because I'm still producing hormones, but not in the same amounts. If like all my lady parts were there, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So with that being said, progesterone is going to be that first hormone that starts to decline, and that's where you're going to start to see some of these symptoms. Estrogen doesn't take a full blown nosedive until we've actually hit menopause, but it wavers, right? So it has its peaks and it has its valleys. And I always tell women, do you ever feel like your symptoms feel very erratic? It's like 1 minute you feel great, you're fine, you're on top of the world, you're like, I'm Gucci, I got this. And then literally it can be like 4 hours later and you're like, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I think I'll go eat worms, right? And Anne's shaking your head. So if you're watching this on the Zoom and you're like, oh yeah, and I'm sure a lot of you are going, oh yeah, right? It's like I'm totally fine. And then my husband starts chewing too loudly. And that's what
Mhm.
sets me off, kind of thing. And Matt would joke around. He's like, okay, what Nicole am I getting today? Kind of going. And it's just the reality of what it is. But this is due to your fluctuating estrogen. And so what
Mhm.
happens for a lot of women, where we speak to, you hear women talk about all the time, like estrogen dominance and the quote unquote menopause belly. Well, estrogen is a hormone that impacts so many things for females, you guys. It does so many things in our body. But when it starts to bounce up and down, what happens is when progesterone starts to take a full blown nosedive, you end up in a place where you're estrogen dominant. And this is where the unfortunate, oh my God, the unfortunate weight gain comes into play. And typically, menopause comes with a lot of, and we spoke to this in the last podcast, but inflammation. It's extremely
Mhm.
inflammatory, right? And you're probably like, well, Nicole, how am I estrogen dominant if my estrogen's starting to decline? And it's because your progesterone is too low.
Yep.
And they've got to balance each other out, right? It's the yin to the yang. And so what I hear happen for a lot of women, I hear this all the time. You have women in perimenopause and their doctor actually suggested estrogen without suggesting progesterone. And I know you said that your doctor had put me on estrogen, but you had probably already hit menopause at that point. So estrogen was flat out nosedived. And so just understanding these pieces of what's going on with your hormones and how to advocate for yourself. But what happens typically though is that most just point the finger as just like you said, you're too young. There's no possible way. So the bigger piece of this is what I want to point out, and just like what you had said, Anne, is that they offered you an SSRI, some sort of like antidepressant to basically numb the symptoms that you're experiencing. And I would love to have a conversation with you back and forth on this. Is I truly feel like, and I know that this is a bold claim, but if we were to get to the root cause of what's really going on with females, when we speak to, we have a mental health crisis in America. But if we were
Mhm.
to get down to that root cause, which for so many females is their declining hormones, I feel like we could cut this epidemic, this crisis in like half, to be honest with
Oh,
you. I
yeah.
really
Yeah.
do. And I'm not discounting mental health. Like if you are struggling, please, like obviously, and does please see somebody. But I'm just saying what I see happen is that providers are putting a band-aid on an open wound that's hemorrhaging, and they're just numbing you to these things instead of getting to the root cause, which is just that you're declining hormones. But Anne, please speak to that, because I know that that's a bold claim, but I truly, with every bone in my body, feel that.
Well, and it has to work in conjunction. So if you go to a therapist, any good therapist, they're going to do an evaluation of you, but they're not medical providers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So any good therapist is going to say, yes, I can help you with some of these mental health symptoms, just like any good doctor is going to say, well, let me give you a pill for this. And sadly, in America, we overuse medication to fix problems that actually require more effort than just a pill. and and doctors have a very hard place because people come to doctors for pills.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you walk away and the doctor won't give you an antibiotic because they want you to ride it out a few more days because they think it's a virus, or when you don't walk away when you're feeling really miserable and they don't give you a Xanax or a Klonopin or an anxiolytic like Zoloft or something, then what happens is people walk away feeling like they're let down by their providers. And so we have this vicious cycle where we're overusing medication and also at the same time underusing medication or underusing appropriate treatment, right? So if I have somebody that comes in with depression, I want to get them up and get them moving. And do you know why I do that and why I'm not focused on cognitive distortions and necessarily all the shame pieces and family of origin stuff? Is because from research in mental health, the best effect on depression is actually getting your body moving.
Movement is medicine.
And
Yeah.
and there are so many people that are like, I'm not coming to you to tell me to go and walk. And I'm like, great, let's go walk. Let's go walk and talk. I will do it with you because I know the science. And when we're willing to have the hard conversations, when we're willing to look outside of the box in our field, and I had this conversation with another therapist just recently. Another, I think that they were a therapist, not a psychologist. Not that like I'm splitting hairs on this, but um, and they were talking about a misdiagnosis. And I said, well, actually, in every field, it's a part of our growth that we're actually outgrowing our standards of care and our treatment, as well as our understanding of what is being diagnosed. It isn't uncommon in any year of any decade of any century that what you're talking about and what you have can be treated better by something that hasn't yet been proven,
Mm.
or doesn't have the science to back it up. And we have to be really careful because certainly there are scams out there, there are frauds out there, but there's so much movement in our fields and research is getting so much better that if something doesn't sound like it's right, I mean, a great example of this is, and I'll just give a little example. This electronic addiction is absolutely going to be in in the next revision of our diagnostic manual. It absolutely is. It's absolutely the thing. I would bet my license on it in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
It is not in the current the diagnostic manual, but it exists. And that means treatments for it, medications for it, the fact that it's even identified, all of that comes out as pseudopsychology first. It sounds like a lot of things on TikTok and a lot of things on social media that you're like, is this really true? Talk about limerence and ADHD. It's not in the DSM, but it still exists in
Mm-hmm.
ADHD. There's so many things that exist, but because we haven't validated yet, we haven't been able to study it fully. We're just kind of out going, well, this is what we actually see happening. We think this is what's happening. But you, as an expert of yourself, you have to follow that thread for yourself. You have to go find it out.
Mm.
And that empowerment, that's the thing I really want to do more than anything is empower listeners. Like, not everyone's going to have all the right answers for you. You got to go figure it out yourself. You got to figure out, it's like trying on a stinking pair of jeans. You go to one store and they're like, that size is not the same size in the other
Well,
store.
yeah, yeah, for sure. That is so funny. And that's such an interesting perspective. And thank you for bringing that to the table, because you're right. Providers would be in this really awkward situation where the expectation going in from a consumer standpoint would be, I don't feel good. Give me the pill to make me feel better. And they're just stuck in this really weird predicament of trying to balance that. And that is actually a really great perspective that honestly I haven't even thought about. So thank you for bringing that to the table, because again, this is by no means throw stones to your PCP or your provider. This is just like what you said. Please, please, please do your own research, educate yourself. And as Anne mentioned earlier, you know your body better than anybody else. And if something's wrong, something is wrong. And when your gut is telling you that this is not just quote unquote the norm, please do your research. And this is 1,000% why I added our hormone optimization team to team becoming her, because I
Mhm.
saw this over and over and over and over and over again. And we're going to dive into what really works when it comes to just getting your body back in menopause and the things that you need to focus on. But here's the thing, you guys, and you hear me talk about this all the time. Lifestyle is the foundation of everything. Like Anne said, part of this is me getting you up and moving. And humans beings were meant to move their body. Lifestyle will be the foundation of how you move your body, how you train, how you fuel it is going to be the foundation of how you feel. And I'm even going to argue to say, if you are on hormone replacement therapy, but you haven't mastered the lifestyle piece of it, you won't get the same benefits of that hormone replacement therapy as if you did master the lifestyle piece of it, purely for inflammation alone. And your body just cannot respond to the hormones in the same way, bringing inflammation down. I'm going to dive into that here in a second. But again, lifestyle will trump all of this. But I was getting so frustrated because we would get so far with the lifestyle piece with our clients and they're crushing, right? We get them to a place where they're consistently eating enough protein. They're moving their body, like Ann said. I was doing all this cardio. I was doing everything. And I know on my end, we're checking those boxes. So I can confidently say, like, we're doing the things. And so I would send my clients before we added our hormone team. It's like, okay, I want you to go to your, PCP, your OBGYN. I want you to request lab work and let's get a solid understanding of what's going on underneath the hood, basically, is what I was
Mhm.
telling them. And the amount of women that would come back and just be like, Nicole, my doctor just refused. Just flat out refused to even run labs and just said, there's just no way. It was maddening. And I was just like, I got to a place where I just wanted to pull my hair out because I'm like, this is not how it should be. I mean, women are just literally having to fight to the bone to just get proper support and help. And so being able to work with a team who has a belief system, and when I always talk about this, you guys, but it's like your hormone protocol and working with somebody who understands hormones should be no different than if you needed open heart surgery, right? Like if you needed something that specialized, you're going to go to your cardiologist because they went to and they have additional schooling for that. And that's what they specialize in. Your hormone protocol should honestly be no different because, again, most primary care physicians or OBGYNs, that's not what they went to schooling for. That's not what they were there for. And so, or what they were, educated on, in the sense to the extent of the education they need to be able to honestly even read and interpret a complete set of labs. Because what happens is, and what the other part of that I was finding is, if their providers would run labs, they were very incomplete labs. And so
Mhm.
we weren't getting full picture, right? Like I knew for a fact that something was going on with thyroid. And I see this often, specifically when we work with a lot of women struggling with PCOS and insulin resistance. And typically if you're, estrogen starting to decline, as most women come to us in a place where they're under muscled, they've really truly, bought into toxic diet culture their entire life, menopause hit, estrogen starting to decline, you become more insulin resistant. They're also working through, they were diagnosed with PCOS. And I'm like, I tell you right now, if we can work through the insulin resistance, your PCOS symptoms are going to start to decimate. I have seen with PCOS inactive thyroid. But what happens is, again, providers don't understand this is not their specialty. And so they're not looking at the complete thyroid. They're looking at the very small picture of their inactive, right? So they test for their TSH. And I know this might not make sense for a lot of people listening. I'm just saying my point here being they're testing for TSH, they're testing for T4, but T4 is your inactive, which technically should convert to T3, which is your active thyroid, but they're not looking at T3. They're not looking at reverse T3. They're saying, well, if T4 converts into T3, you have ample amounts of T4. And I'm like, but what about conversion issues? What about pathway issues that are so very common for females struggling with PCOS and insulin resistance and inflammation, and their body just isn't converting these hormones, but they
Yeah.
don't know how to look at the full picture. And so that's where the struggle is. And then they get a very generic, well, here's some metformin, right? Instead of getting to the root of what is really going on. And so I speak so passionately about this because yes, the lifestyle piece and checking those boxes is everything. But like Ann said, I was cycling 100 miles a week. I was eating relatively well. I was eating less. I was doing the things and they still wasn't working. And it's because hormones at this point, it's not just hormone fluctuation. We're talking about hormone deficiency. Your body
Mhm.
stops producing. It stops producing these key hormones. So yeah, your body is not going to respond as well. Point blank, end of story. And so I see you shaking your head. Do you have something to add to that? And I know I just rambled, but again, I could talk this for hours and hours and hours and hours on end because I'm just so passionate about it.
No, it was, as you were talking, I was thinking, and just in my head, thinking about the number of people that I've heard say, well, but an OBGYN or but a doctor goes to school for this many years. And, how dare you say that someone who has only a few years of training
Mm,
knows more than this. And what I was thinking about that in my head as you were going on is that there's a big difference about what we do after we get our degrees. And I talk with people about this all the time. I'm a psychologist. I know, like, I know a lot about 1% of like what I need to know, but I know a lot about that 1%. But even in my field, I'm a specialist because I pursued a lot of information about three very different correlated diagnoses.
mm,
And that's what made me the expert, um, as well as my continued pursuit of education around certain things because I'm so passionate around it. And I think what happens a lot of times is that a lot of doctors get an amazing overview. They've done a ton of education, really bright people, very, very smart, but maybe their backup information and maybe the alternative treatments they have not pursued because they've been told either that's all hogwash, it's not FDA approved, that hasn't been proven yet. And again, they run generally by insurance companies. So
mhm.
insurance companies drive some of the information that they get. And I had somebody who was a pharmacist tell me once, and they kind of challenged. They said, "Well, do you ever think it's really suspicious that a lot of these companies are doing their own research? There's no other, place that's kind of offering this research, and so they're proving results on XYZ because they've done the research." And I said, "How do you think this normally gets done? Do you think that other companies pick up other companies' products and just do
Mhm.
research randomly on it? Like, eventually, when it gets big enough, yes, they will. But when research begins, it always starts at home." Right.
Mhm.
And so we've got to try new things. We've got to think outside of the box, even as consumers. And I think that's why there are so many different specialty clinics popping up. I think that's why there's so many different healthcare options that are private pay, because we're tired of living inside of insurance structures. And I'm not saying insurance is bad. I have insurance. Love our insurance. That is not what I'm saying. Insurance is a business and they're trying to manage cost. That's it. It's not
Mhm.
personal.
Yep.
It's not an attack on you, but they're going to go the cheapest route because it's the most effective for the business.
Mhm. 1,000%. And I love that again that you're bringing this perspective because it does shift how you look at things when it comes to specifically the care that you're after as well, and being able to truly advocate for yourself. So, I mean, yeah, this is crazy. I want to talk about so we have what we call on our team the 4M method, and this method is the foundation of honestly how we produce the results that we produce. And this method goes against the traditional just eat less, move more. And I know that you were stuck in that cycle for a long, long, long time and just getting really frustrated because you really were doing quote unquote all of the right things, right? Like the things that should
Mhm.
work and probably did work for a period of time leading up until menopause hit and we start to work through, hormone deficiency and all, become more insulin resistant and we're working through just things that we weren't struggling with in our 20s and 30s. And so
Yep.
1,000%. I want to dive into what really works. So you can walk away from this podcast and you can feel empowered to start to tackle the things that are really going to shift not just how you look, but dramatically how you feel. And so our 4M method, it stands for 4M's, and that is going to be muscle, metabolism, macros, and menopause. And I put menopause in there because menopause is hormone deficiency and being able to tackle the hormone deficiency piece of it. But I want to speak to the other three M's first because these are the things that are going to drive your success. And if you can master these three pieces, not only will you look better, you are going to feel better. And you guys hear me talk about, and I want to talk about muscle first because this is something again that I'm so very passionate about. We just happen to hit all my passionate topics today in the podcast. So I'm doing a lot of talking today, but I always say that muscle is the key to everything that is good in life for you, specifically as a menopausal woman. So
Mhm.
as we age, we naturally start to lose muscle mass. And it's at a pretty rapid rate. It's like 1 to 3% a year, which, if you put that over a course of a whole decade, we're talking like 10 to 30% muscle loss that just naturally starts to happen if you are not taking the lifestyle like doing the lifestyle things on your end that you need to do to manage that muscle loss. So what we see happen is muscle is starting to decline. And I speak to this, right? Like muscle is the key. When I say to everything that is good in life for you, it's the key to aging. It is the key to health. It is the key to combating falls, breaks, tears, osteoporosis. It's the key to that toned body that you're after. You guys always hear me say the toned banging bod, that you feel damn
Mhm.
good and naked. And it's the key to a metabolism that is on fire. They all work, like muscle works synergistically with everything that you are working through right now. And I always say, like, it's like, if there is a problem that you're experiencing or something you're struggling with right now when it comes to your health and fitness, honestly, adding muscle to your frame would help. I mean,
Mhm.
there's not one thing that you're experiencing right now where adding more muscle to your frame would not help in some capacity, with other things that we need to combine with, of course, right? And so what happens for women is that, again, they've spent their entire life dieting. We have fell victim to the eat less, move more culture. That is right. That's how we lose weight. And I guess, yes, there's a piece of that is true. But ultimately, when you're starting to naturally lose muscle mass and then you go into menopause with hormones starting to decline, everything gets more challenging. And so when you are after a very specific goal, and hopefully that first and foremost, that goal is to feel better, adding
Mhm.
muscle to your frame is going to, and Anne, speak to this a little bit, because I know that since working with Team Becoming Her, this has been a huge emphasis of yours. And I know that you can speak to just not just looking better, but feeling better. So take it away, girlfriend.
The muscle. Well, and as I mentioned, when I came to the team, this was quite some time ago. I was cycling like a mad lady, and I would that was the hardest shift for me because I am a long beloved cardio junkie. I was a competitive swimmer as a little girl, all through high school, did lots of really cool stuff in swimming, and then took up cycling. And so when I started going to the gym to work on weights, not only did I feel like an absolute fool because I knew nothing, I also couldn't lift very much. And I wasn't really sure that I was lifting correctly. And so, I went to the gym, and pretty much the entire time I was like, okay, whatever, I'm just going to get it over and done with. I just would like, I'd go there and I'd lift. And then, the coach at the time was like, all right, you need to slow this down. You need to try
Yeah.
this. You need to go lighter with the weights. And it was very, very humbling. And it took a really long time. And it was kind of mind numbing how long it took to actually get the definition that I wanted to. And I thought, well, I'm working out, I'm doing all the right things, and the coach is noticing things, but I'm not noticing a lot. But I kept doing it because that's who I am. I keep working, I keep plugging away at it. And that actually was the correct game. And now to a point that my muscles pop, my veins pop when I work. Like I can go, and even like my teenage son who works out and he does jujitsu, and he strength trains like a beast, and he's in football, and he's like, man, mom, those arms. And and it's really kind of fun. And it wasn't that I was necessarily in pursuit of the most amazing body ever. I wanted to feel better in my skin, and I wanted to feel more confident. But what happened was really a transformation, even at the gym, even in my esteem at the gym. Like I went from picking apart kind of everybody's movements of the gym, and like looking behind my back and looking over my shoulder and seeing how people were doing it, and like, all right. And then, then kind of judging the people who weren't doing it correctly. Yes, that is me, guys. I was like secretly judging them.
Love
I'm
that
like,
you call that
oh,
out.
you dingbat, you don't do it like this. And now I'm going to the gym and I get it, and I'm loving it, and it's really fun. And I'm not saying every morning I wake up and it's like, yay, raw, 5 a.m., let's go hit it. But I would say 90% of the time I walk away feeling not just proud of myself, but understanding that what I am doing, even though it's not hours on the road cycling, is going to get me more long term, not only in how good I feel about myself, but also, I mean, I got a metabolism that I've never had. I don't remember eating 2,000 calories a day
Mm.
and like being fine with it and needing it and feeling hungry and really enjoying what I'm eating, and it's not all trash. And it was a really slow shift, just little things that we started to work on, little itty bitty things. And the coach, at one point, one of my coaches said to me, and the closer you get, the more on spot you gotta get. Like you gotta get really heat up on your nutrients,
Yeah.
and making sure that you're eating really clean, and making sure that you're actually doing things that you need to do. And so you can't forego sleep. You can't just do XYZ. And it was really interesting that when I tweaked it ever so slightly, and again, I still eat pizza and donuts and cookies and all the food that I like, but you have to learn how to do it. And the same thing with working out. I've been to the gym before, I lifted weights before. I always thought three months, maybe 4 months, and I'd get the body that I want. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and sometimes it takes a little bit shorter. But we've got to do all in conjunction. But I walked away feeling not just better about myself, but more confident about my ability to maintain it.
Mm.
And I am not spending hours on the road. It's the weirdest thing ever. Like it's like 3 or 4 times a week I'm going to the gym, and then I ride for fun. But 3 or 4 times a week I'm going to the gym. I'm not spending my whole life there.
Mm. You said so many things again. I love this conversation. You said so many things I want to touch on here that a lot of women are going to really resonate with. And you speak a lot to that mentality and that mindset shift that has to happen, right? Like I'm not out on the road for 2 or 3 hours. This really doesn't have to suck my soul. I can be in the gym 3, 4 days a week. I give, the intensity behind your training sessions is there. And I'm going to dive into that here in a second. And I'm starting to see results. And I want to point that out because I think a lot of women, what happens is that same mentality, right? Like, you think 3 or 4 months of hitting the gym and you're going to end up, and I can promise you right now, adding enough muscle to your frame to change the shape of your body is going to take you a lot longer than 3 months. And I know that's not what women want to hear, but that's just the reality of what it is. You can start to really see the impact of it though much sooner, right? Like you start to
Uh-huh.
see your body changing. And I'm sure that's part of one of your favorite things, and you literally see your body changing shape before your eyes. And it's so
Hmm.
fun when you start to see those changes and you really are able to dial it in. But I love that your coach pointed out, because I talk about this often. It's like the leaner we become, the more strategy that is required and the more dialed in that things have to be. And you nailed it. You're like, well, I was in there and I was just doing it to say that I worked out and I, checked something off my list. And this is why women end up frustrated. And it's one of the number one things I hear. I mean, if I had $1 for every single time I heard this, your girl would be sitting on a fat stack of cash. But it's like, Nicole, I work out 5, 6, even sometimes 7 days a week. Why don't I look like I work out? And it's like, yeah, that would be frustrating AF, right? Like you're putting all of this energy into it, but you're not getting that ROI in return. That's
Yeah.
frustrating. And there's a couple things going on here, right? Specifically, I mean, 98% of the time, your nutrition is a big driver of that. But B, women are doing just what you said. It's like, I just went there to kind of check off the box to say that I went, but there's no intentionality behind my training. I'm kind of just throwing things together. I always say winging it. It's for your eyeliner. It's not for your training protocol. You will not end up with the body that you want by winging it. And that's what happens is that women go in, they're like, oh, that machine looks fun. That one looks
Uh-huh.
kind of cool. It doesn't look as intimidating, right? And I get strength training comes with a level of intimidation. It is a skill set. It is a new skill set that you will have to develop. And mastering form is a skill set. I'm still working on mastering form. I don't know if you'll ever master, but I still have tweaks that my coach gives me. And it's like, okay, move slightly this way, right? Like there's smaller tweaks, but
Hmm.
that comes with the skill set and it comes with putting reps into it. And it's going to take some time, and it's a dimmer switch. I always say it's not a light switch. You don't just flip it on or off. It's going to take some time to develop and learn that skill set. But what I see happen is women are just there to check the box off without the intentionality behind it. And that's the difference between working out and training. It truly is. And that's what separates the elite from the average. That's what separates women who are in the gym 6, 7 days a week. Why don't I look like I'm in the gym? I'm putting all of this effort into it versus the women who are in the gym. Like we have, how many women we have working out 3, 4 days a week, 45 minutes a day to average
Hmm.
45 to 60 minutes. And they see amazing. I mean, look at Nikki. We just posted her in the group. I mean,
Hmm.
friend 52. I mean, she's
Looks
jacked. I
amazing.
mean, she's
Yes.
more jacked than I am. I was just like, holy shit. I mean, but she, busy. She runs a farm. She's like, works still, and she still finds time to train 4 days a week. And she's in the gym on average 45 to 60 minutes a day, but her training is intentional.
Yep.
There is so much, and it's designed in and around progressive overload. Obviously, it's custom to her and all those things, but there's intentionality behind it. And that's what drives results. And nutrition, of course, is locked and loaded for her. And we're going to dive into the macros piece of that. But if you find yourself and you're listening to this and you're like, yep, I go to the gym just to go to the gym, and you are still going to the gym with the idea that you go to the gym to burn calories, you are missing the bigger picture. You really
Yeah.
are, not just from a psychological standpoint, of which I know Anne can dive into, but just from the what you're trying to do standpoint, right? Like, because we don't go to the gym to burn calories. We go to the gym to get stronger. We go to the gym to add muscle to our frame. Like, we go to the gym to change the shape of our body, not to burn calories. But that's the mentality for women is I want to eat less. I want to move more to burn as many calories as I can. And like you said, I'm trying to do it faster so I can keep my heart rate up. So I can, like, you know what I mean? Just check. And then they end up frustrated. And there's nothing worse than that. There's nothing worse than putting the energy and effort and not seeing the results. So we, obviously wrapping up the muscle piece of this with the pretty pink bow, it's a non-negotiable, ladies. It is. And if you're not prioritizing, I promise you, like with everything in me, you guys, I've been doing this for a long time and there's just a wee bit of data. If you could take the mentality of how can I lose as much weight as possible and shift that into the mentality of how can I get as strong as I possibly can, fat loss will become a byproduct of that. It really
Mhm.
will. If you can shift that one mentality, but again, it goes against everything that we think we know when it comes to weight loss, right? And when it comes to fat loss. So anything else to add to the muscle piece of that, Anne? Because I know this has been key for you.
Well, and I want to point out, at the point at which I was cycling 100 miles a week versus my calorie load, I should have been in a pretty substantial deficit and losing
Mm-hmm.
weight for that time frame. But I'll tell you, our bodies adapt to that really quickly, and so this idea that you need to move more and eat less doesn't actually pan out. And now I eat on average probably 2,200 calories a day.
Mm-hmm.
It is modified based upon whether or not I actually do go out on my bike and I go for a ridiculous long time because I'm having fun. But it's not. It is so different because when you are going to burn calories at the gym, you're watching the clock and the calories tick up, and then that almost gives you permission to eat that day.
Mm-hmm.
And what research says time and time again is if you exercise for the sole purpose of weight loss, you will not continue to exercise.
Yep.
We have to show up and work out for reasons other than weight loss.
1,000%. You just nailed that. You just nailed that. And I think this bleeds right into the other M, which is metabolism and
Mm-hmm.
understanding, I always like to talk about how truly like the female metabolism is so freaking like powerful when it's tapped into correctly. And most women just don't understand how, not even that they don't understand, they're scared to tap into their metabolism because that requires fueling it, right? Like that requires eating more and eating more scares women. Like that's just the reality of what it is. And, I would be lying if I said that, I didn't fall, we all fall victim to that. We have. And so when you understand what goes into your metabolism doesn't break, it's a myth. It doesn't happen, right? Your metabolism is not slowing down. That's not the reason. I mean, like it's been proven it doesn't even kind of take a hit until like in your 60s, but if you're doing the things that you need to do, then you're not even going to feel the effects of that. So it's not that your metabolism is slow or that it's broke, but it adapts to what you give it. And just like what Anne said when she said when you do that much more cardio, your metabolism adapts to the output part of it too. So you just have to continue to do more to continue to get the same burn. So it was meant to keep our bodies alive, right? Like it's an adaptation machine. And so when you understand that you're in complete and control, total control over your metabolism, and think of your metabolism, it almost controls every bodily function, and not almost, it does every bodily function in your body. But think of your metabolism as basically the amount of calories that your body burns every single day. Right. So it makes sense that you want a metabolism that's on fire. Like that makes sense that you want a metabolism that's working for you instead of against you. And so when you take excessive long dieting phases or you're constantly dieting or you've never really, I see this happen a lot of time where women think that the term reverse dieting has gotten really big and they think that they're increasing their metabolism, but they always stay at that lower end because they're just really too afraid to bump calories up where they think like, like what Ann said, I'm even on average 2,000 to 2,200 calories. And I find 2,000 calories for most females. Of course, there's exceptions to this, you guys. This isn't everybody, but that's when most females really start to find homeostasis, right? Like that's when their body starts thriving. You're giving it what it needs. It feels good. You have more energy. And again, this number is so very different for everybody, but 2,000 calories for a lot of women scares the shit out of them. Like you think like
Mhm.
more, right? And so it's hard, but then you also look at it and you're like, okay, well, maybe I don't eat 2,000 calories consistently, but then I'm not taking into account like the weekends when I go crazy and I'm not really counting and tracking. And then I'm eating 6,000 calories in a day. You know how easy it is to consume 6,000 calories in one day when you
Oh
go out
yeah.
to dinner and booze is involved, you guys. Right. But then we don't think about it. That's the mental when women end up in a place where they're dieting mentally, not physically, because you don't understand that fat loss doesn't happen on the daily. It's on the average. So yeah, you might not be eating 2000 calories on the day to day, but when you account for your weekend calories and you're out with your girlfriends and your brunches and your date nights and your booze and all of those things, on average, you're probably consuming more than that. But if we were to fuel your body correctly, consistently, the need to quote unquote binge would decrease. But then that's also the piece of understanding how to fuel your body, right? So it's this like whole cycle that is connected and understanding where it all comes in. But understanding how to tap into your metabolism as a female going through menopause is the only way you will ever see success. And I love that you brought up the fact, and without me even having to ask you about this, is I'm eating on average 2000 to $2200, 2000 to 2200 calories. And you would argue to say probably in the best shape of your life, physique wise.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
Fair
I
statement.
I would say even when I was in high school and I could bench press a lot, I was swimming butterfly. I was like I held records at my high school. I am in better shape now
Mm,
in my 50s than I was in my before my 20s when I was actually competitively swimming.
yeah, that is. And I was telling Anna, I'm like, you're such a freaking babe. If I even look remotely as good as you do in my 50s, I'm doing something right.
Oh, thank you. You look
So,
amazing. But it's it's interesting though, because even though I had amazing cardiovascular health and I could fly through the water literally, and I was very very strong and very powerful, the appearance of the muscles was very different,
mhm.
and knowing how to get there was very different. So I had always worked out, always enjoyed movement, but knowing how to do it, oh my goodness,
Yep. Yep.
make or break,
Make or break.
understanding the building blocks of it. And it's not actually complicated. That's the mind, it's
It's,
not complicated.
we
It's very
overcomplicate it.
simple.
Yeah.
You just don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you can work so hard, but you're working in the wrong direction, or you're working in no direction.
Yep. And we're going to bleed this right into, because I love that you just talked about this. We're going to bleed this right into the macros piece of it, because this is the third M. And you guys hear me talk about this all the time, you guys. Calories are king, protein is queen, fiber is the jack. Together they build the kingdom. Like what I see happen is the breakup of your calories matters, and it matters a lot, right? And
Mhm.
understanding how to fuel your body correctly. And when we speak to just the fat loss piece of it, right? Losing body fat, sustaining and maintaining as much muscle mass as we can. You could honestly focus on calories and protein alone. And if you're in a calorie deficit, you're consuming enough protein. I say fiber just because that's digestion. It helps bring down the bloat, all of those things. You will lose body fat. Absolutely. But where it starts to get really fun and when you start to really tweak things is when you start to look at the breakout of your individual macros, because that determines how you perform. And when you perform better, right? Like, so if you're breaking out your carbs in the right amount, specifically your pre and post workout, and you have the right amount of energy to bring to your training sessions, you're able to give 100% energy and intensity to those training sessions. That's what truly is going to quote unquote shape your body. Because the only way you're going to add enough muscle to your frame is if you understand how to train at the intensity that you need to train at.
Mhm.
And most women ungodly underestimate how strong they really are, just in general, right? But then they're underfueled on top of that and they don't train. So even though they're in the gym 6, 7 days a week, they're giving me maybe 60% because they're not fueled enough. Their recovery shit. They don't really like again understand how strong they really are, and they never really capitalize on when we speak to progressive overload and how to really take muscle to failure. And the only way you get to a place where you can really capitalize on it is when you start to break out and understand how to break out your nutrition. And the pre and post workout piece of it is big, right? Like it is pre-workouts energy, post-workouts recovery. They both play a massive role. But I always say trying to focus on that before you've even mastered, you know, eating enough protein daily and hitting your calories daily is stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. You're focusing on the wrong things. So you
Mhm.
always say like start where you're at. Focus on hitting your calories and hitting your protein. That's going to feel a lot less overwhelming and daunting. And then when we've mastered that skill set, we can start to look at breaking out macros as far as pre and post workout. But that's why I threw macros in there, because that this is again when we understand how to do this is what separates the elite from the average. This is truly how we are able to produce the results on my team that we are, because when we can dial in nutrition that is unique and individual to you and your goals and your calories and breaking out in a way for your training like that, that's powerful. That's a powerful move that we have to make. And they all play synergistically together, right? When it talks to adding muscle to your frame, you're never going to add enough muscle to your frame if you're not eating enough calories in general to give your body the raw material to do so, and you're not eating enough protein. And when it comes to your metabolism, if your metabolism's in the shitter and you're just your baseline calories, your BMR is way too low, then you're going to struggle with fat gain because you're not going to be able to eat the food that you need to be able to eat to be able to produce the mass. And so it's just all connected. And just when you get a grasp of all of these things, you guys, game changer. It's an absolute game changer. And then we have the menopause piece of it, which we spoke to. So I'm not going to dive much into this, but just understanding that menopause is hormone deficiency, but it
Mhm.
indirectly impacts fat loss because it again directly impacts how you feel. And so understanding that if you are menopausal, I'd be willing to bet you're going into a very little muscle to your frame. You are working through some insulin resistance, hands down, which is going to make things more challenging. But what I also am seeing is a lot of women, specifically just because we've worked with so many women, is that they're walking around with undiagnosed autoimmune diseases on top of this. So
Oh yeah.
inflammation is astronomically high and they're struggling. This is why it hurts to walk around in your joints and it's painful and you're puffy and you're swollen and nothing about that is fun. Nothing about that is fun. And,
Mhm.
hormones that are not being optimized are going to lead to that. They're going to lead to some of these autoimmune diseases. But yeah, anything to add, Anne? I feel like I've just been like word vomiting, but again,
You have done an excellent job. I am impressed. You nailed that one. You got all the pieces in.
No,
I
you
I
brought in such a great perspective to so many things, though, too. I mean, so thank you for some of these things because it's things I didn't even think about specifically when we speak to the physician piece of it. So,
I just want to echo. I know that I said this. I cannot say this enough. Knowing and having someone that knows where to go and what to do and having the direction, at least for me, was so impactful that I wound up getting my personal training certificate as a part of this process because I was so deeply affected by someone who knew how to manage my body in a way that was actually empowering and made me feel good. But knowing the direction and having someone who can lead you in that
mhm,
direction, it takes away all of this nonsense, all the misinformation and the disinformation out there. Someone else who knows the pieces to look for and can get you there and can get you there easily. Holy cow.
ginger. Yeah.
Game changer. So grateful that obviously lots of reasons, but so grateful that originally I purchased the package. I didn't come on board. I came on board as a client,
As a client,
just
and then
trying
you
to get
reached out
things.
to me and you're like, have
Yeah.
you ever thought about this component? And I'm like, oh, believe me, I have thought about it and you are in my head. Yes, I have thought about this.
Game changer though, game changer. So it like I would get if I had to go back and pay double for this package, I would have paid it happily, understanding where it was going to get me to where it was going to get me to where it is that I needed to go. And it's because it's very much like how I'm paying medicine. I'm paying out of pocket for functional medicine for my hormones. I will continue to pay as long as I can afford it. I do understand that that is a luxury. I will continue to invest my money in that
Mhm,
versus spending my money on copays and medications that don't work and medications that make me feel like crap because it gets me to where it is that I want to go.
yeah,
And
that.
so if I have to skip going out to dinner, if I have to skip
Mm.
on a luxury car or the next upgrade or a subscription to fill in the blank, I will forego those to have my life move in the direction that I want it to move.
And I promise you guys, I don't pay Anne to say these things. So thank you for that. I promise you, like that is like not sponsored. I don't pay her to say these things, but I mean, obviously feedback like that is absolutely everything. And I just want to end with this because I think that you just nailed it. And I always say, you guys, I'm a coach, right? I feel like I'm a pretty banging one. I understand this up, down, left, sideways. I do this for a living. I will never not have a coach because this journey is what I see happen is women are like, well, I'm smart. I'm educated. I should be able to figure this out. Look at Anne. She's an extremely smart. She holds a PhD. She's extremely educated. But what happens is where women don't, what they're not taking into account is this journey is not just confusing AF because there's so much
Mhm.
misconflicting information out there, but it's emotional, right? And when it's your own journey
Oh yeah.
and your own emotions are attached to that, it is so hard to make the moves. Like, do you know how many times probably Anne, I know for a fact she's texted me, kicking and screaming about doing this or that. And like, leaning into what her coach tells her to do. And we've done a podcast talking about that, right? Like having to get our
Yeah.
own self out of her own way. And it's like, it becomes really hard when it's your own journey to work through the things that have kept you stuck for so long. So it becomes really hard to honestly add food when we need to add food. That can be a challenge, not can be. I know it's
Mm.
a challenge for the majority of women. It
Oh
can
yeah.
be hard to take food away in dieting phases when we need to take food away because dieting is not living your best life, but there's a time and place for it, right? It can be
Hmm.
really hard to, like Anne said, I love cycling. Like it was a shift for her to get at a place where her sole purpose of training was only cardio and shift and moving into a place of strength training. And you hear her talk about it. It's not this or that for her. It's not like she has to only strength train. Like she gets to have both. She just understands what we need to prioritize and where that all fits in now. But it becomes
Hmm.
hard to do that when it's your own journey and that's something that you really, really enjoy. And I never want to take away anything from women that they love when it comes to moving your body, because we talk about how powerful that is in general. But I'm just saying when the emotions to your own journey are tied to it, it's really hard to make those decisions on your own and follow through and commit, right? You might tell yourself, I'm doing this thing, but the lack of the follow through is what you're struggling with. So
Hmm.
yeah. And Anne's just in here grinning. She's like, yeah, check, 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 check. All right. This has probably been one of my favorite podcasts to date, just because I love educating on these topics. And these things are, again, what's going to separate somebody from looking and feeling their best versus just walking around feeling like a zombie and numb version of themselves that they just don't understand why and what's going on. So hopefully you guys took away some powerful insights here. And as always, if you find value, liking and sharing and tagging us on social media is all that we can ask for. And of course, if you're in a place where you're like, okay, I've realized I need support, I need help, this is what we do so ungodly well, I guess, toot my own horn. But the application is also linked in the bio there, you guys. But we will see you guys in the next episode. Ciao. Bye.